Hey, everybody, welcome to the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Broadhead. Today, we have the pleasure of talking with Brian Allen. Hey, Brian, thanks for spending your afternoon with us. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, Chris. Good to be with you. I'm Brian Allen. I am the founder and CEO of Pension Consultants from Springfield, Missouri.
Nice, nice. So, how did you get involved in the world of finance?
Uh, right out of college. I graduated in December of 1990 with a degree in economics and got into finance just immediately upon graduation.
Nice. What interested you about the field?
In high school, I was interested in investing. Um, didn't know much about it. And that's probably what interested me a little bit. I came from a family of fairly modest means in a small rural town in Missouri. And that just seemed intriguing and almost mysterious. And so when I did go to college, economics seemed to be a nice path towards that. So I've kind of been interested in it most of my life.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it looks like you've made quite a business for yourself. Most of the folks who are interested in finance, they're in New York or, LA or kind of like large pockets of wealth, Chicago, Miami. You're in Missouri. Missouri's a beautiful place, but maybe not known for finance. How did you create such a beautiful, successful practice in a place outside of the big wealth centers?
You grow where you're planted, right? This, this is where I was planted, so this is what I've known, and people here have the same needs, and it's not as dense, it's not as concentrated, so you have to maybe go further distances than you would if you lived in a large metropolitan area, but same opportunities abound here. In fact, there's some very, very large firms in Kansas City and St. Louis, creative planning being one of them. So there's a lot happening in this part of the world as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's probably to investors' benefits to consider those areas as well and not have such big blinders up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us kind of like how your practice started, like your first clients, your first investing strategies, how you cut your teeth and got so proficient at this industry?
I got my first job as an independent contractor out of college, and so I didn't really appreciate the differences back then. But there was a fairly large firm at the time called IDS, and I joined on with them. They're now Ameriprise. They've gone through a couple of iterations, and so I got my Series 7 license in January of 1990. Went on to get my CFP, and at the time I was told, and I think unfortunately this is still true, that the vast majority of people that start that way do not make it past a year or two. But so just being scrappy, just being hungry, that point in my life, was able to get by on less, but just did it whatever I could. I cold called back then. I went to trade shows, whatever I could do to find a client. I found a client.
Yeah. Did you figure out there was a certain type of client or niche that you could help best, that resonated the best with you, that was the easiest to work with?
So I've ended up specializing in defined contribution plans. 401k plans is the vast majority of our business, my business. And so I got put on that path about 1994 when I went out and started my own firm. Named the firm Pension Consultants before I had a retirement plan client, which was pretty bold looking back on it. But I had committed myself that that's what I wanted to do. That's what I wanted to go after.
Mm-hmm. How did you know that was the focus for you?
Uh, I tell you, it's not a very glamorous story. The truth is, when I was at IDS, I had a manager that told the story about having a small employer client that every April would call him and say, I need to put $30,000 into my retirement plan. And at the time, I thought, you mean the client calls you and tells you they have money to give you? Um, I thought that sounded like a pretty neat concept at the time. So I thought I need to get into this retirement plan business where money goes in routinely. And at the time I was working so hard, $15,000, $20,000 investment would have been a big deal to me back then. So that's why I got interested. And then I just committed myself to it, learned everything I could.
Mm-hmm. So if you're comfortable sharing, what are some tricks, or what are some, I should say, strategies that you employ to help folks with their retirement planning?
Well, we focus on 3 areas, and our typical client now has about 1,000 employees. So I've been able to move up market pretty good.
Wow.
That's 30 years. So we work with pretty good sized companies now, but we specialize in working with committees, who is what always ends up hiring a firm like ours. It's a group of people, not just one person. And we define our ideal customer profile as a committee that is engaged and compassionate, and they want their employees to retire on time with dignity.
Mm-hmm.
So that's who we target, and we try to focus our services on that and have done so.
Mm-hmm. What would you say the biggest difference is between serving your client with 1,000 employees and previous iterations serving just a regular client with assets?
Probably not as much as you would think, not as much difference as you would think. I used to believe, and I wrote a book a couple of years ago, and I put this in the book, but I used to believe that if you worked with let's say you're accustomed to working with $250,000 client or $500,000 client, I used to believe that when you got to $1 million, that client would be more sophisticated. And I learned that the $1 million client wasn't that much more sophisticated. And then I thought, well, surely when you got to 5 million or 50 million or 100 million, that the sophistication would rise dramatically. The truth is, it doesn't. The needs that they have, and in my case, retirement plans, corporate retirement plans, they have the same kind of needs. I think the service you provide to them is different. To get into the door, you have to be different. You have to stand out. So that element changes, but the sophistication of the advice is not as different, I think, than what most people would think.
Yeah. And that's I was half expecting you to say that. It's it's kind of the same, small and big, which is the maybe an irony of life.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage to go upriver to going from single clients with their retirements to actual owners of 1,000+ employee companies? What was that journey like?
There wasn't one moment. I will tell you, somewhere early on in my career, I had an epiphany for me. I think success is different for everybody. So what is success for me is different than success for somebody else. But my epiphany back when I was, just working my tail off to get whatever client I could get is I decided I did not want to grow a practice. I did not want a practice revolving around me. I wanted to grow a business. And that hit me fairly early on. And so I kind of got a vision for what I thought that would be. And I kind of worked towards that. And as anybody would tell you that's done anything in business, then it becomes about who you attract alongside you in your business. And I've been fortunate to work with some really good people that have joined with me. So I would say success, if anything in that regard, is the ability to attract talent to you.
That's that is profound. Success is attracting talent to you. That's I'm gonna have to think about that for the rest of the day, I think. Um, that's awesome. So, some people read a book, some people hear it in therapy, some have a mentor, or some are just born that way. Um, but it seems to take years, sometimes decades, to realize that you can't grow your business when you're working in your business. And it sounds like something inspired you with that. Any idea how you got that insight?
I don't recall any specific event. I can tell you, for a big part of my life through my 30s and 40s, 20s, 30s, and 40s, I was a voracious reader. I love to read nonfiction, biographies, industry journals. So I was always looking for the best idea I could find. I've always been hungry for that. But I've seen somebody say something here recently that connects with me, and that is, everything works, nothing works well. And I think that's true, right? They're
Yeah.
looking for this really one hidden secret that will transform everything we do. And it's really just not such a thing. But there are all kinds of little incremental improvements you can make on your business along the way. And then when you look back 10 years, you're like, wow, we've traveled a far distance.
hmm Wow. Any books that made the biggest impact on you?
Hmm. Biography of George Washington, um, biography of Steve Jobs, um, Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. Those are three that just right off the top of my head come to mind.
Okay. So it's almost like these books acted as mentors to you. Like you got to hear these, incredible luminaries' stories and either model them or just kind of learn from their paths and their decisions. Um,
Uh,
that's
maybe
great.
maybe so. And you don't, Steve Jobs. A lot of people like Steve Jobs, and there are certain things you can learn from Steve Jobs, and then there's certain things you can learn not to do from Steve Jobs. So hopefully there's a little wisdom in observing people and trying to take something away from that.
hmm Yeah. So this show's title is the Ultra High Net Worth Clients Podcast.
Mhm.
It sounds like you're fairly well versed in that realm. I'm curious about your first ultra high net worth client. How you went from serving, excellent clients. I'm sure they had a fine amount of wealth. How did you make the jump to the ultra level?
Uh, Took a big chance. Started a conference, um, and gentleman that I was able to hire 1 year from the day I started the company, and who later became my partner. He and I decided to start a conference and invite planned sponsors to this conference. And we did a 2-day conference. We took a big chance. It was the days of snail mail, where we mailed out invites, set up speakers, and waited in the mail for people to send a response and a check back for the conference, and had probably, I don't know, 75 people show up. And from that conference, I would say 3 to 6 months later, we landed, at the time, about an $18 million client, which back then would have, you know, is what I recall as our first big client. And I remember being pretty excited about it.
Yeah, and out of the 75, you're like, if we get one of these, this more than pays for itself and
Oh,
our
yeah,
time.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But did you get any other clients from the conference? Or
We
just
ended up running that conference every year for 22, 23 years. Just did the last one a couple of years ago, decided to do something different after that. So yeah, that conference was good to us. Started out as a prospecting conference and ended up being client client conference mostly,
Mm.
but it was a very good thing we did early on.
And what was it about the conference that got the attention of these ultra high net worth clients?
There was at that time there were very few conferences for people who ran corporate. So if you were a benefits manager, an HR director at a mid to large size company, there were just very few educational resources, and we just tapped into that early. And we invited IRS and DOL key people in both of those organizations to come, and yeah, so it just turned out to be a good thing for us.
Hmm. That's awesome. Do you think a lot of people have figured out that that idea works and it kind of watered it down?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we stopped doing it. We were still had good attendance, but now you can't throw a rock and not hit somebody running a conference.
Yeah, amen. Um, are there any sort of modern strategies you guys employ to connect with and kind of entice new ultra high net worth clients?
So yeah, we've got a full-time sales and marketing effort going on all the time. I have a full-time marketing manager. We have a part-time copywriter. I have a full-time salesperson. Uh, have another gentleman who's my partner that's on the speaking circuit. Yeah, so we're it's hard to be a successful business if you don't have a successful sales and marketing strategy. And that's one of the differences between a practice and a business. And the way I look at it is, um, if you want to build a practice, which is nothing wrong with that, then you're talking about going to chamber events, going to country clubs. You're trying to meet personally with people. But if you think of yourself as running a business, the way you approach your sales and marketing is dramatically different.
Mm-hmm. How does that change when you're running a business to running a practice?
Just the scale of it, the sophistication of it. So, if you're going to run a business, you need to learn about lead generation, lead development, sales engagement, sales process. You need to devote yourself to those kinds of concepts. I think if you consider yourself running a practice, a lot of it is personality driven. You're going to do probably some marketing. Hopefully you do, but you're probably not devoting the time to that as a discipline like you do if you're running a business.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And now, are your clients predominantly in the Midwest? Are they all over the country, all over the world? What's your
So
geographical focus?
historically, prior to COVID, they were mostly within say an 8-hour drive of where we're located, which is right in the middle of the country. But since COVID, we have made an effort to go everywhere.
Mm.
So the advent of Zoom and video technology, we're now regularly going to the coast.
So I guess from that perspective, COVID had a positive, somewhat of a positive impact on the
It was
business.
definitely an accelerator for that aspect of it. We were already moving that way,
Mm-hmm.
and had already built out some, Zoom room resources and things along that line. But it made the adoption from our clients and prospects so much quicker than it otherwise would have been because everybody had to get used to it.
Mm. Yeah. That was virtual working by fire hose there.
Yes.
That's great. So I guess you are extracted from the day to day of the business. You're not kind of meeting directly with clients. Maybe you're not deciding on the investments. Can you talk about that kind of transition and how your skill sets and how you focus your time changed?
I am running the day-to-day of the company now. I did through 2016, stepped away for 5.5 years, and then as of March of this year, I'm back running the day-to-day.
Got it.
I chaired the investment committee that entire time, so the investment decisions I've been a part of the entire time. But I do periodically go out on sales calls. I do periodically go to client meetings, although we have client plan managers that do that as a part of their regular duties on a day-to-day basis, and we have salespeople do that. But I need to keep my finger on the pulse and know what clients are wanting and what they're liking, what they're not liking. And I need to keep my finger on the pulse as far as what the marketplace wants out of somebody like us. So I need to go out on those sales calls from time to time too.
Nice, nice. So you are a busy man. How how do you decide how to break up your time between focusing on which investments, focusing on interacting with clients, growing the business internally, spending time with family? How do you break that down?
I'm not so busy anymore. I'm in the office. I'm probably in the office about 25 hours a week. When I'm in the office, I'm in meetings just back to back to back. And I think there I have to watch the priorities. What are the priorities, and not let me get taken away from what's the most important thing. And then when I'm away from the office, I'm reading emails, reading papers, that type of thing. But I've got just a really good group of people who are doing most of the heavy lifting, and then I just need to make sure strategically we're pointing in the right direction.
Got it. What's your perspective on the current state of the market? Are we in a recession, out of recession, going into a recession?
I personally think we have a big air pocket underneath the current levels of the market.
Yeah.
It's my personal opinion. I think the problem we've got with housing, commercial real estate, debt levels, that's my personal opinion, but you and I have been doing this long enough to know that one person's opinion is just one person's opinion, right? The rest of the market gets a vote in that. But I would look for a sell-off in the market in the next few months, honestly.
Oh, wow. Okay. And it seems to me that we have a shortage of, real estate for people to live, homes, and we have too much commercial real estate. Why don't those two things just solve each other?
I'm sure if you owned a building in downtown LA, which is where you're at, I'm sure there are more than a few people having that conversation or having those thoughts right now. How do I convert this B or C office building into condominiums, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's every study I read, the core of all of our issues. I mean, like, obviously homelessness is there's just not enough supply. And it's like, okay, well, how do we build more supply? It's like, well, it's expensive and there's a lot of regulation. It's like, well, there's already all these buildings and office buildings that no one's using. What's going on there? I don't, no one seems to be talking about this. I feel like am I missing something?
I think it's just trying to find the economics that work for the person who owns that building or the group of people that own that building. How can they convert it and not lose their shirt in the process? I'm sure that's what bankers and real estate owners are trying to figure out right now. And I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, you acknowledged it. I feel seen, so we're good there.
Good.
Awesome, Brian. Well, you're a wealth of information, and I could just toss questions your way for the rest of the afternoon, but I will respect your time. And my final question, it's an open-ended question. You can take it any direction you like. What are you working towards?
I am working towards building a company that is attractive to prospects of ours, that feels valuable to clients of ours, and whose employees feel valued and seen in their work.
Amen.
That's what I'm working for. Yeah.
Amen. Where can our audience find out more about you and everything you're working on?
We're on X, which is hard for me to say, but we're on X, and we're on LinkedIn as far as social media goes, or you can find us on our website at pension-consultants.com.
Mm-hmm. And we will link to all of those in the show notes. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I really enjoyed speaking with you. You have an incredible story, and I know you're just going to keep doing more amazing things. So thank you again.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much. It was really good to meet you and be with you today.
Yeah. All right. All right, everybody. We will catch you next time. Keep on growing out there, everybody. See ya.